Hello and welcome. We're in Isaiah chapter 40, a remarkable part of the Bible with its message from God to his people through Isaiah, spoken in order to give hope in the midst of despair. Well, this chapter shows us so much about what God is like, and that's the main focus from here on in, as it says in verse 9, "Say to the towns of Judah, here is your God, behold your God, let me show you what he's like." Well, before we get to that, I think there's something for us here in the context of Isaiah chapter 40 that helps us with our own suffering. Because chapter 40 looks ahead beyond Isaiah's time, beyond the time of exile to when the people will return. And it seems that Isaiah is preparing the people in advance for dark days that are to come, so that they will stay faithful to the Lord. Well, it's true, isn't it, that suffering tends to either draw us closer to God or pull us away from him. And so I think it is important that we also prepare ourselves in advance for when it does come, because it will come. Use the good times to prepare for the bad, to get your theology right, to build trust in the promises of God, so that when hardships come, you can draw deeply on all you know about who God is and the promises he has made, his loving intentions for his people. Then you can stand firm on these unshakable foundations, even in the tough times. When hardship hits us hard, well, at those times, I think it can be really difficult just to think clearly. So prepare in advance. Lay the foundations in the good times, so we are ready for the bad. Well, this is Isaiah 40, God's word given to his people in advance of the dark days of the exile that will sustain them and carry them through stronger in their relationship with him than ever before. Well, verses 9 to 11 are our focus for this week. You who bring good news to Zion, go up on a high mountain. You who bring good news to Jerusalem, lift up your voice with a shout, lift it up, do not be afraid. Say to the towns of Judah, here is your God. See, the sovereign Lord comes with power, and he rules with a mighty arm. See, his reward is with him, and his recompense accompanies him. He tends his flock like a shepherd. He gathers the lambs in his arms and carries them close to his heart. He gently leads those that have young. Well, let's start in verse 9. And as we come to this verse, can you see how important it is to God that his people hear his message? Let me just line up the words of this verse to help us. The people described as Mount Zion and the city of Jerusalem and the towns of Judah, I have good news for you. And I really want you to hear it. So he says to his messenger, up on a high mountain. Feels a bit like standing on a chair in a crowded room to make an announcement. And he says, lift up your voice with a shout, turn up the volume, make sure you're heard. And he says, lift it up and do not be afraid. Don't let your fears keep you silent. No, I really want people to hear. I want them to have hope in me and my promises to get them through the days of exile ahead. Well, isn't it just a deep sign of God's grace and love and concern for us that he has given us his word? Words not only about what he has done in the past, not just about the present, but also about the future, and he wants us to hear. He wants us to know what he has in store for us. He wants us to know that it's going to be all right, that we have a hope and a future far greater than anything in the present. Say to the towns of Judah, behold your God. Here he is. This is what he's like. And as the chapter unfolds, so our vision of God will be magnified. And we're just going to take the rest of our time on the two insights that we're given about what God is like in verses 10 and 11. So firstly, just take a look at the first of the two small paragraphs on the screen. How many words can you see that refer to the Lord's power? Well, let me just circle a few of them on the screen. He is the sovereign. He's the Lord. He comes with power. He rules, and it's with a mighty arm. It's all about his power. We're told his reward is with him and his recompense accompanies him, telling us that as he comes to Jerusalem once exile is over, the Lord will bring his people with him. The faithful remnant, they are his reward. but this is all about his power. But then in the second paragraph, just take a look at that. How many words can you see that refer to the Lord's loving care? Well, again, let me circle some of them for you. He tends his flock. He's like a shepherd. He gathers them. The lambs are held in his arms. They're carried close to his heart. He gently leads. So clear is this picture of God as the tender shepherd. The weak will not be left behind. The Lord is both the mighty warrior who rules with power and the tender shepherd who gathers his lambs in his arms. It's a great combination, isn't it? Isn't this just what we need? If God is only the mighty warrior and not also the tender shepherd, well, then we know he has the power to scatter the nations and overturn Babylon. But does he love his people enough to act for them in this way? And if God is only the tender shepherd and not also the mighty warrior, well, then surely his heart goes out to his people in exile. But actually he's totally powerless to do anything about it. But as he brings his people back, well, his arms are mighty as he destroys his enemies. But these same arms reach down to us as he gathers the lambs and carries them home. He is both the mighty warrior and the tender shepherd. Well, I'm sure you can see how this picture points us to Jesus. He is the one who is both the good shepherd who carries you in his arms and the mighty warrior who fights for you, as on the cross he destroys our enemies, defeating the power of death, hell, and the devil. Well, thank you for listening. And next week we're going to be moving into my